I don't think I can trust you. I'm a programmer.
Wow. Tell us more about it.
Stop! There's two of them coming.
Views and opinions are not necessarily that of John Strange, host, guest, and affiliated.
You have everything.
Yeah, it's kind of a creepy place, you know, because there's no light at all.
A lot of experiments out there.
Plutonium, nuclear weapon.
Nuclear destruction. They're just balls of light. There's a ghost in the house.
Broadcasting live just outside the Napa Valley Wine Country. This is Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave Cruz. Thanks you for being here tonight. It is Sunday, November 24th, 2019. Looks like we survived another meteor shower. Oh man, we got a really great show for you tonight. Just a few days before Thanksgiving. Christmas is right after that. And I'm really, really happy that we have Rea Tarnava. And I hope I didn't butcher that too much. We'll find out in a little bit. She'll be joining us here in a little bit. Also, I have Brother Gigi from Shift Happens, our wonderful Fringe FM host of the show. He's going to be joining us here in a few minutes as well. And yeah, it's going to be a great show. So I'm really looking forward to our show tonight. You can follow us on Twitter at Strange Days 2015. The hashtag is Beyonders. Something is going on with the Fringe FM. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Brother Gigi, do you know if we are on right now or what?
I will check it out right now.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm not sure what the heck is happening there. But while Gigi's taking a look at that, we will. Let's see. Hang on one second. I want to double check this and see what's going on here. This is really, really bizarre. But anyways, those who are in the Beyond the Strange YouTube channel, thank you for joining us. Donnie in Alaska, Mari, Russ Bailey, Dino is with us tonight. Really, really, really happy to see all of you guys. Michael Jordan, how's it going, Michael? We have a great show for you guys, and we'll see what's happening with the Fringe FM. I don't know exactly what that's all about, but hopefully we will get on the Fringe. All right, so got a lot to talk about, so let's just go back to what I was saying. And if all the social media links, all the stuff, times and stuff for the show are at beyondstrange.com. So make sure to drop by and visit there and take a look, register, also subscribe. It would be great. We are on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And please remember to leave a like and or comment for the show. Hit that follow button. Brother Gigi, are you there?
I am here.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if you were trying to say anything or not.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. Keep going.
That's all right, man. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the Fringe. It looks like we're having some kind of weird connection error.
Yeah, yeah, the whole network is off air right now, which I've never seen that before. I'm texting Joe as we speak, so we'll see.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll bring you on so we can talk.
Great.
All right, thank you, Brother Gigi. So keep checking Beyond the Strange website for future updates, merchandise, giveaways, prizes, and please show your support by donating. It's very important, especially after some of the stuff that Gigi and I are going to talk about tonight. This is some really bad-ish, if you know what I mean, that's going on in the content creators world. So we'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, so just go to beyondstrange.com for all of that. Now, what I quickly want to talk about is Spreaker, YouTube, content creators. Not sure what's happening with these guys. They used to be a very dependable source. They used to be very I don't know what the word is, but dependable. I mean, we used it for broadcasting, for streaming, for storage, and it just seems like they're making it harder and harder for us to do this. And what I wanted to announce today is all the content for Beyond the Strange that's on Spreaker right now is going to be moving over to the Beyond the Strange official Patreon site. And, it's something that I've been meaning to do, but now I'm definitely going to do because Spreaker has sent me a message saying that they're going to delete my content if I don't fork up some more money. And if you guys know anything about this, it's not easy to get all this stuff going. It does cost money. I'm not saying it's like TV production or anything like that, but it does cost money, and so it's not easy to come up with money to continue for storage and broadcasting and all that stuff. And Spreaker's just making it harder. It was easier before. It wasn't as much. Now they're upping everything, and it's just been ridiculous. So a lot of the actually, I'm going to say just about every download is going to be going to Patreon. And again, if you have any questions, just email me at beyondthestrange.com and beyondthestrange@gmail.com. And I will, send you links or whatever you need if you want to find an episode. It's going to be on Spreaker one more month before I start moving stuff over. And yeah, and not only that, YouTube is also making it harder for us content creators as well. In a second, I'm going to bring on Gigi, and we're going to talk about that before we have Rea come on, because it's very important. Yeah, let me bring on Brother Gigi right now. I know that we're probably not on the air on the Fringe right now. I'm not sure what's happening there, but it's important that we talk about this nonetheless, Brother Gigi.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm still waiting to hear back from Joe, so we'll see. But yeah, this YouTube situation is, like I was telling you earlier, it's just rendering me speechless. They're obviously, I mean, here's the thing, like I'm sure you're about to bring up, they're essentially, with the new terms of service and everything, any YouTube account that is not generating what they define as enough money is going to be removed from YouTube. Now, here's the thing about that. 99% of all the videos on YouTube are not monetized. There's all kinds of great content on there that people just, they're not making a living doing it. They're just posting up videos and so likewise, 99% of YouTube users are there for those channels, and they're very seriously going to, starting on December 10th, I believe, right? They're going to start systematically shutting every channel down that's not making enough money, or that they deem not, they deem not worthy of running ads for. Which is completely defeats the whole purpose of what YouTube was originally created for. YouTube, as we know it today, it's not anywhere near the same thing that it was. It's a completely different thing now. And essentially what they're doing is they're trying to turn YouTube into a family-friendly, basic cable TV sort of network. And it goes so much deeper than that, and it's disgusting on so many different levels, which we'll get to some of those points in a little bit here. But yeah, it's crazy, and it's actually really scary.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And like Gigi said earlier, Gigi and I have already been exploring in the realm of video streaming. We're collaborating along with our friend, the Reverend John Polk, who's also on the Fringe FM. Hopefully we would like to have Joe Roop also collaborate with us. But this is something that is very important because we feel that, because of this, not only because of this, but our content creators are just having a really hard time with the likes of YouTube and others. It's ironic that I'm actually broadcasting on YouTube right now about this issue. You know what I mean? And so it's just funny. But we have been looking into the likes. We talked about this before about Bitmovio. We talked about BitChute, Twitch. Either way, we are definitely going to find a way to bring you the content. Even if YouTube shuts their doors on creators like us who talk about the paranormal, who talk about what's happening in mainstream parapolitics. Everything that people need to know, and that they're not talking about in mainstream media. So, we definitely want to get the information out to you, bring on guests like Rea, who we'll talk about in a minute about what's happening in the health industry, what's happening out there, and just, every aspect of the world is changing, and it's not changing for the better, guys. I mean, I'm not trying to spread fear porn. Believe me, that's not what I'm here to do. But I will say that there are things, and there are people out there who want to, just take over. And so, with that, I'm going to, leave it to Gigi real quick again to explain what his idea was for us, to collaborate.
Yeah, definitely. So, we're really excited about this new project. Essentially what it's going to be is, going to have at the end of every week on Saturday nights, we're going to get a round of, Fringe FM hosts, like we just said, being Dave and John Polk and hopefully some others. It's just going to be a weekly, it's kind of like two things. It's a weekly recap of, all the latest news and controversies going on in our community and getting all of our takes on it. And then, as well as, I'm sorry, what was I going to say?
No worries, man.
But yeah, it's going to be, it's also sort of an AMA kind of thing too. It's going to be, we're originally, we were planning on doing on YouTube, which the first couple might be on there. But if all this stuff goes down, which all indicators say that these new policies are actually going to take place on December 10th, so we might move it to somewhere else. But either way, it's a great way for, all of our individual audiences coming together. We all get to hang out. We've got the live video stream of all of us, so you can see all of us. And so we're going to cover the topics, but we're also going to answer everybody's questions in the audience. And it's just going to be, a great time. It's going to be a fun time. And, it's just really cool because we all listen to all these shows all the time, and we've got our favorite hosts and they always have guests on the show. But how cool would it be to have all of your favorite hosts together talking to each other? Nobody's really doing that. And it's just going to be fun. It's going to be informative and a great chance for all of you guys to chime in as well, not only on the topics, but also, you can ask us anything. And it's just a big, informative hangout session with a group of Fringe FM hosts.
It's going to be great. The synergy is going to be awesome. I really believe that. And just look forward to it, guys. We'll be announcing it, in the weeks to come. And we're looking to start it up sometime next month before Christmas. So that's something to look out for. And again, I want to thank, Brother Gigi for coming on and explaining that to us. And if you want to hang out, Gigi, go for it. Just, let me know if you have any comments or questions you'd like to ask Rea. I'm about to bring her on right now and read her bio.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome. Brother Gigi, everyone from Shift Happens. He will be joining us most likely in the later part of the show. All right, let's bring on Rea. Rea began exploring alternative medicine about 19 years ago, seeing the problems within the current Western medicine paradigm. She completed a Bachelor of Science and then went on to study with pioneers in the field, including Carolyn Myss, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and Dr. Joe Dispenza, to name only a few. Rea is currently working towards a PhD in integral health life physics with a focus on subtle energy science. As a gifted intuitive empath, Rea offers many different modalities, which blend technology and the esoteric. She uses both a consciousness-based approach to health and healing by addressing mind, body, and spirit mixed with science-based assessments using investigative tools like the Bio-Well GDV, applied psychophysiology, and Tennant, microcurrent medicine. Aside from her practice, Rea is first and foremost a curious seeker on the hunt for the truth and all that interests her. Her vision for the future of medicine is anchored in her belief that healing will be done outside of the body. As such, she is currently doing research for her first book and concurrently working on a related invention. To learn more about Rea and her research, visit www.infinitebiofieldmedicine.com. Help me welcome to the show for the first time, Rea Tarnava. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Dave. Thanks so very much for having me on your show. I much appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rea. Sorry so much for all the technical difficulties we're having with the Fringe. I don't know what that's all about. Hopefully our producer and director, Joe Roop, is working on that as we speak. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we are definitely live on YouTube right now. And I want to thank everyone who wrote to me and subscribed to Beyond the Strange because of you. They wanted to hear you tonight. And I want to say thank you to Teresa, Mike D, Dave Edmond, Kane Y, among others who were looking to find you. And so here you are, guys. Here's Rea.
Great. Well, thanks. And thanks to everybody who contacted you. That's wonderful news.
It's great. And I'm really glad we were able to meet on Facebook. I guess the biggest question for me, Rea, is what exactly is a subtle energy scientist?
Well, that's a complicated question, but I'm going to do my best to answer it. So there's all sorts of different ways of looking at subtle energy in the body. There's the traditional Chinese medicine approach, which looks at the meridians and acupoints and the energy that travels through those channels. There's also Vedic, the Vedic history and Vedic medicines that work with the chakras and nadis. And, even things like homeopathy works with subtle energy, where you're taking a particular substance and you're reducing it until there's maybe one or two molecules, or maybe just the memory of that. And so subtle energy is an interesting thing because it can't necessarily be measured specifically by the scientific means that we have. And so we measure the signals. And so we're able to detect signals produced by subtle energy because they change one type of energy into another. And they create like a transducer type signal, which generates electric and magnetic signals that have observable and measurable effects. So that's really, as a scientist, that's what we look at. So if you're using something like applied psychophysiology, maybe you're measuring the muscle activity, or you're measuring skin conductance. So you're measuring the changes that are happening like electrically in the muscle and on the skin. It's not the actual subtle energy that you're measuring. But having said that, my esoteric counterpart to that is being a practitioner, and I work with subtle energies. I do things like Eden energy medicine and biofield tuning, and you're working with the subtle energies in the biofield as well as the body. And I can tell you from working on people that it isn't something that does not exist. I mean, I deal with it every day, and when I'm holding acupuncture points, you can literally feel with your fingertips when they connect, and that's the subtle energy. That energy that, like I say, we maybe don't have real specific tools for measuring them yet, but I think there's a lot of people working on it. Certainly, the Russians are extremely far ahead of us when it comes to subtle energy research. So that's maybe a little bit of an introduction as to kind of what I do.
No, I think that's great. And, you've definitely surrounded yourself with a lot of very, very qualified, very known researchers in this field. So I think that's pretty awesome. So is this what you are referred to when you say you're a practitioner of?
Yes. Yeah. I have several modalities that I work with clients, directly one-on-one. And I use, like I say, a science-based approach, but also in a lot of their treatments, it's more of working with the energies of the body. So Eden energy medicine and probably biofield tuning are the two that I use the most. Eden energy medicine predominantly works with the body, but certainly does work in the subtle layers around the body as well. And biofield tuning is Eileen Day McCusick, and I studied that a few years ago already, and I do get a lot of people coming specifically for that because it works on the perturbations in the field around the body. So if you have somebody, like specifically, let's say somebody with a lot of trauma, or maybe somebody who's developed a tremor, but your intuition tells you that that's not because of anything physiological going on in their body, it's something psychological, then you can work on those layers of energy around the body. And it's kind of like tree rings. So, most people's biofields extend roughly to 6 feet, but you find the edge. You have to find the edge, because some people go out farther. And if someone's ill, it can be in quite close to their body. And then it's literally like tree rings. So, the outer ring would represent sort of their birth, and at the edge of their body would represent current day. So as you're combing through their biofield, let's say like I do with the tuning fork in biofield tuning, you can hear disturbances. And it's amazing. I use sort of my intuitive abilities and the clairs, like the clairaudience and that type of thing, clairsentience. And I get a feeling in my body of what the emotion is. And so we're able to identify it and clear it, like right in the moment. So you clear it, and it takes the emotional impact away from the memory. It's not like you're erasing the memory, you still remember it, but you don't, have that same emotional charge. So it really helps people in their healing journeys to deal with all of this trauma. We're all, we're erased with trauma. You look at animals and they shake it off. They have ways of dealing with stuff. They don't sit and ruminate, but humans, you can think of something that happened 25, 30 years ago and still have the same emotional charge as the moment it happened. And so that's predominantly what I think brings illness into our lives is the inability to let go of the charge of an emotion.
I definitely see that. And I know that I've spoken with quite a few colleagues and even far as say my friends that I've met since I've been doing this, where they do Reiki, where they do clearings, that sort. And, a lot of this is regression, whether the trauma is something, back in their childhood, or, even perhaps something that's extraterrestrial.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think it can come from anywhere. Like it's, there's definitely the whole past life theory too, that we bring things in with us that were unresolved. So, I've done a lot of research on children who remember their past lives and people who've had near-death experiences. Since I had a near-death experience, I was very curious what other people's experience of it was. And I think there's definitely a lot that comes in with those two. I think you can have a near-death experience and perhaps bring stuff in from other lives, even when that happens. Even if you didn't have it before, it can start from that point moving forward. And you hear about that all the time. People who've had an NDE and all of a sudden they come back and they can play the piano. And not just peck at it, but literally play like concert piano. There's one gentleman, I wish I could remember his name, and he had an NDE and that's what happened. Or another gentleman who came back and all of a sudden he was just a math genius. So it comes from somewhere. Is it coming from a past life? Is it tapping into the Akashic record? It's so interesting. I just love studying stuff like that and researching it.
Yep. It's definitely fascinating. And, I want to mention to those who are in the chat room at YouTube, if you have a question, definitely please put that in the chat, and I'll get to it as quickly as I can to Rea. Donnie in Alaska has a quick question. He wants to know is there's any connection between what we're talking about tonight and what you do as to with Kundalini Awakening energies.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in Kundalini, but certainly, when you study subtle energies, you do kind of touch on the whole Vedic system. And absolutely, when you have a profound Kundalini experience, my understanding is it can be very similar to the experience of an NDE. And again, you can bring in all sorts of stuff with that type of experience. And ultimately, I think what's happening is you're raising your frequency. We're all born under a frequency. We all have unique identifying frequencies. No two people are the same, just like your thumbprint. And so I think, as people go through these experiences and you raise your vibration, yeah, absolutely. It can allow all sorts of different gifts and stuff to start appearing in your life that weren't there before.
Right. Brother Gigi, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Rea?
Yeah, actually, well, real quick, I just heard back from Jeremy, and he's saying, he said since you're not streaming on Spreaker, it crashed the server, and he's trying to get a hold of Joe right now as we speak. So just wanted to give you that update.
All right, fair enough. I'll see if I can contact Jeremy as well. But go ahead, please.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you had a question for Rea.
Oh, not just yet. Yeah, you guys keep going.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So with this this type of research, Rea, and I'm sorry I didn't get to ask you. How long have you been doing it? Was this something that just came to you all of a sudden? Was there a synchro involved? Did you know about this growing up?
Well, I've always had an interest in everything unusual.
Mm-hmm.
I had my near-death experience. Actually, it's kind of an interesting story. I was only 18 months old, and I remember it like it happened this morning. And I think pretty much anybody that's had an NDE would say the same thing. And I guess when I came back to life, I had abilities that I didn't have beforehand, and it left me with an eidetic memory. So I remember absolutely everything that happened from 18 months till today. So having said that, there were a lot of interesting, and I hate the word psychic, but I'll use it for lack of a better word, a lot of interesting of psychic phenomenon that was happening all through my childhood. And it really wasn't easy. And I had a mother who was very fearful of this kind of stuff. And I kind of suspect that it runs in my family because my aunt is very psychic, and my grandma, she had all of these crazy abilities that none of us could figure out. And I think my mom probably maybe had it, out of them, maybe had it the most, but it scared her. So whenever I would go to her with these stories, like I would kind of get shut down. And then when I was 7 years old, we moved and I had to go to a different school, and my mom was a teacher. And so up until then, I had been very protected because I was going to elementary school where she taught. So when we moved, I ended up in a Catholic school, and that absolutely isn't good for people who are claircognizant. Like I just knew when things were going to happen all the time. And I think I scared my teachers half to death. So there wasn't a lot of warmth and embracing of my abilities. And so it really kind of got shut down. And the interesting thing about this kind of stuff is the more you suppress it, I think the more it wants to come out. So I really, I got to a point where it was really like disturbing my life. I was getting to being where I would know when people were going to die. I would see people and I could feel and see their illnesses, and it was driving me crazy. And I thought, if I don't, do something with this, like I might end up in the nut wing, right? So that's when I decided to go back to school. And even though I was working full time as an architect, I started doing a second degree in science, trying to get answers, right? So I started out in alternative medicine, and then I found this program at California Institute for Human Science, and that really fits me. It's like the closest thing you can sort of get to a combination of health and science and parapsychology all in one kind of program. And so it's really helped because it's given me like a context for all of this, so I can frame everything and understand what it all means and how I can use it to help people heal. So that's kind of how it all came about. So yeah, I've been doing this off and on for a really long time, but really seriously, just for about the last year. Like I've been doing my practice full time. Before that, it was a part-time venture, but I decided that it merited really spending a full-time effort on it.
Yeah, I wish I could do a lot more and, research a lot more on this. Well, I can. I've got so much going on, and plus I hold a 9 to 5. Most of my audience knows that. That's why I haven't branched out into, 2 or 3 days a night. I'd love to, to also do the same thing and talk about these kind of topics and issues. But what does it mean to you being claircognitive? I'm sorry about that. Because I myself, I kind of consider myself an empath as well. Not so much as maybe, psychic or anything like that. But basically to maybe the degree where I know when someone's BSing me or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it all kind of ties in with your intuition. And that's why I say I don't really like the word psychic, because unfortunately, I think there have been a few maybe individuals in the public eye that have kind of spoiled it, the term. But certainly, we have more senses than just the physical ones. And I think if you look back to ancient texts, you can find a lot of supporting information. The Egyptians talk about having 26 different senses, the ancient Egyptians. So I don't think it's anything new. I just think that it's been suppressed and we've been sort of regressed and made apathetic. And, we're kind of, we've been reduced to those who behave, in our society. But I think anybody has the ability to develop these. I don't think you have to be born with it or have a near-death experience or anything. I think it's like anything, if you practice it, you can get really good at it. And intuition is something that all animals are born with. I mean, you don't see animals just waiting around to be eaten, right? Like they try to get away at least. So yeah, they've got one step ahead of us. So claircognizance is just, it's a knowing, it's a feeling inside of yourself that you just absolutely know something. And it can be something, small and trivial, or something big like that. You just know somebody's going to die. And, for me, I often get clues in other areas. So I'll get visual clues, or I'll get an auditory clue. I've gone through about the last 2 years, this really strong thing where I wake up in the middle of the night and I smell different smells. So then I know there's some energy that's around me that wants attention. And that's how it wakes me up, is I smell it. So I'll wake up my husband, or I'll wake up my son, and, invariably, nobody else really smells it or hears it. It's just me. So there's all different ways to kind of intuit this information. And so, yeah, you can taste it, smell it, hear it, see it, or know it.
Yeah, that's really bizarre. I mean, I've talked to people who hear it, maybe sense it. I fall more along as I think in the sensing part, but to hear or see things that other people can't, that's something where I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it develops over time. And when my son was young, I suspect that he's got claircognizance, really, very strong. And I played like these psychic games with him all growing up, just, having had my feet sort of in this since I was a kid. And so it really helped to develop, his skills. And if you look at the work of like Russell Targ, when his kids were young, he was the remote viewer guy that worked with Stanford Research Institute. And he used to play these games with his kids. And I read all about it and I thought, well, this is a great idea. Why not do this with my son? And, it's really helped him, because people can't pull any crap with him. He's only 14 years old, but yet he's got this unbelievable ability to see through the BS, which is a great skill to have as a teenager, right? Because a lot of them they're led down the rosy path by bad influence. And he'll never be subject to that, because he's got these extra sensory abilities that help guide him through life. I think everybody should do these things with their kids, develop those skills. It serves them well, and it helps raise their frequency, make them a more, useful and productive part of society.
Yeah, I totally agree. I try to communicate that with my daughter as well, my kids. My wife and I, we have a blended family, and we've been together for like 11 years. Deb's great, and our family is just wonderful. And they know I do this, podcasting. They support me on it. It's funny because not a lot of people would do that, especially the younger generation. But I think it's different now. I think a lot of these kids are growing, or not growing, excuse me. They're coming into this world with a sort of sixth sense, if you will. There's something that I know that the whole story about indigo kids and that kind of thing. It's a new generation, and I think that there's a lot more acceptance of things where mainstream. I don't want to get political, but it just seems that either extreme left or extreme right doesn't even exist anymore. It's all about, hey, you know what? This is all about, helping you, helping me. Let's help each other. Especially understand each other. And I think the communication has been pretty amazing, even amongst all the bullying that we've heard about, and and that kind of thing. I think it's starting to get to the point where it's being recognized more, but it's also being exposed as far as like mainstream is concerned. And I think that some people use it for their agenda. Hopefully I'm not getting way too off topic, but I just
no, I mean, whenever you have a teenager, you're dealing with bullying. Like that's
you're right,
that's the life, right?
Exactly. And my kids, a couple of my kids went through that, and it was horrible, but we supported them, and we were with them the whole way, and they've grown up to be fine. We definitely, let them know that they're loved. And I think that's the important part. But but I do believe that there is a faction, a cabal, whatever you want to call it, a new world order that wants to use everything and anything they can to use against us for whatever reason. And as the night goes on, we're going to get into those topics. I just want to mention that Jeremy Scott of the Fringe FM, who is also one of the main directors and engineers, has been able to get us back on the Fringe FM. So I want to say good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Beyond the Strange tonight. I apologize. I don't know what happened with the technical difficulties, but we are on with Rea Tarnava, and she is a subtle energy scientist. And we have just been having a great, fascinating topic discussion. Brother Gigi is also with us from Shift Happens. He'll be on with us a little bit later in the show. But we're having a great conversation about what Rea has done and researched. A quick, to catch up everyone in a nutshell, Rea. Maybe you can just go over again what you do and what you've been doing and researching.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah. Well, I have a practice where I work one-on-one with clients that have every range of imaginable health issues that you can conceive of. And so I work as a practitioner, and then I also do research. So I'm currently pursuing a PhD at CIHS in San Diego, California. And so I'm back and forth between Canada and San Diego quite a bit. And so we study all sort of ways of measuring subtle energy. So what I do in my practice is then quantifiable, which is very important to me, because it's one thing to have, abilities and be able to intuit things and work with energies, but I want to have that, pragmatic science background, so that not only can I explain that to my client, but also, I can know that what I'm doing is effective. So subtle energy, itself cannot necessarily be detected by scientific methods that we have today. But what we're doing is detecting the signals that are produced by the subtle energy. So so that's a little bit, as a refresher for the new listeners of, I guess, what I try to do and how I marry the two.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Dr. Bruce Lipton and what he meant to you and your research. How does he figure into this?
Well, I mean, the whole, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. I love Dr. Lipton. As I mentioned to you earlier, I swear I'm one of his biggest fans. But I love the work that he's done and how he had the courage to step forward and step out of the current medical paradigm and not just be sort of another, how can I say, like religious zealot, because really what, a lot of what goes on in science is dogma, and it's not science at all. And so I really applaud him for kind of stepping out and doing his research and showing that, the way that he looks at the cell is that the membrane is the brain of the cell. So my son just took this in biology in grade 8 last year, and they're still teaching that the nucleus is the brain. And we know from Dr. Lipton's work that that's absolutely not true, and that genes express themselves epigenetically through the environment that they're in. They don't express themselves because they have some coding, like a ticking time bomb. So, for example, people that have the BRCA gene, they're not going to get breast cancer just because they have the BRCA gene. It's all the things in their environment that may or may not trigger that. And so that happens epigenetically and environmentally, but it doesn't happen just because you have the BRCA gene. So I love his work because I'm all about health empowerment, and that's my mission on this planet, is to teach people to take back their power from the white coat. Not that you'll never ever need to see a white coat, but that you are empowered to understand that you have the right and the ability to make your decisions about your health yourself, and not to give that away to anybody. And I think Dr. Lipton's work is the epitome of that. So that's, I guess in a nutshell, what I love most about him.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm briefly going over, some of his work, and yeah, he seems pretty amazing. Again, this is, some of the stuff that I haven't ventured off into too much. So I'm really glad you're with me and explaining to my audience and everyone that's listening as well that this does exist, and it's definitely something we all need to be aware of, because what we want to talk about later is what is happening, or we can even talk about now, is what's happening with,
well, yeah, absolutely,
with with the medicine industry right now. If you want to call it an industry, it's business. It's horrible.
It's a big business, and absolutely, it's a perfect time to interject with that, because this is the reason why we're told things like, oh, you have this particular gene, this is what you're going to get. You've got genes for heart disease and genes for cancer and genes for everything. And again, it's just another way of taking away our power and making us afraid. And, you're a good consumer when you're afraid, because you'll spend any amount of money to stay alive. And the reality is, if you look at the statistics for cancer treatment, this was some studies that we went over in a class I did last semester. And, and it's 5%, maybe 5% of people that go through the whole chemo thing live past 5 years. And how medicine looks at a success story is, if you go through chemo and you live up to 5 years, you're considered cured. So if you die one day past that 5 years, then statistically you're not accounted for. So how many people really are being cured by chemo, and how many people just really get an extension for a few years? Because it's not really dealing with the problem. And if you look at a lot of, cases like breast cancer is a good one. It's a very emotionally based cancer. If you look at New German medicine, it explains to you, it's a very, very in-depth explanation of the types of breast cancer, and which is correlated with different emotional events that happen in a woman's life. And so how much of chemo and everything for breast cancer is actually curing it, and how much of it is just, part of these anomalous kind of outside of the study range statistics. So I get really frustrated, because if you work with somebody and you deal with the emotional component of it, you deal with the trauma, and you work with them with I like to use a collaborative approach. Not, one person is an island. You can't help everybody. You need other people in the mix. And they're, a smart practitioner or somebody like myself will refer out when you need to. Like, again, you can't fix everything yourself. It's just not possible. But when you take a good collaborative approach and you work with these people, and yeah, they might have to have a bit of Western medicine. They may have to have a surgery to have a tumor removed. But the support that's there from all of the other complementary modalities that you're putting in is what gives them their success. Because again, there's a huge statistics that shows, especially in breast cancer. Sorry that I got off topic, but that's kind of where I was going, that it will reoccur. So, I know a lady who had breast cancer 3 or 4 times before she finally passed away from it.
That's terrible.
And I can tell you, she never, ever did the work to deal with the emotions. So she would go in, have it cut out, do all the radiation and everything, and invariably it would come back. And what science would have you believe is it's because of your genes. You've got these faulty genetics. And it's really not true. It's because the negative emotions that are triggering those genes haven't been dealt with. So if it exists in your field and you're carrying it around, it's going to come back in. There's no possible way that it can't. But then you look at success stories where people went through and they did the work and they did whatever counseling was necessary, and maybe they adopted a spiritual component to their life. Like it doesn't have to be religion. I mean, even yoga or meditation is a spiritual connection.
Right.
And they're getting their energies flowing and they're doing some grounding, earthing practices. Those are the people that they don't have it reoccur. So while they still may need some Western medicine intervention, they do end up healing because they've healed the cause. They've healed that environmental component that is causing the gene to express.
And, I don't want to bash, our doctors. I do feel that a good part of them are trying to do good work. And for the most part, they do. I feel that, it's great when a person is sick and they get diagnosed early and so it is found early in whatever it is that's ailing them so that they can start doing something about it. And like what you mentioned, whether it's chemo or some kind of treatment, there's other things that need to go along with it. And especially what you mentioned, I'm also a big proponent of medical marijuana or hemp, CBD, that is doing amazing wonders for people who have had cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease. But not only that, but, also other things like MS and those other kind of diseases. But the bottom line is what you're saying is, it is something that's not only a physical, but maybe perhaps spiritual, which, in turn is working with the physical. It's all connected. Was what I'm trying to say. It's
all connected, absolutely, and that's why practitioners such as myself, we take a mind, body, spirit approach, because you have to clean up the problems with all three areas. You can't just work on the body and expect to fix. Like, we're not cars, right? You can't just change out the muffler and all of a sudden it's going to run. It doesn't work that way. You could have colon cancer because you hate your dad. It's got nothing to do with just replacing a part. So if and when medicine can embrace dealing with health on all these levels, they're going to find more success. And so, that's kind of an aside from emergency medicine, because it's a little different if you sever something in a car accident or whatever. I mean, emergency medicine is a miracle. If you've ever been to an ER and you see what goes on there, I mean, these folks are highly trained and highly equipped to deal with medical emergencies. But I'm more talking about like the chronic illness situation. Right. In North America, it's unbelievable. I mean, diabetes is fastly becoming the number one killer in America. Everybody should stand up and go, what the hell's going on? And all these inflammation diseases that hardly existed 100 years ago are now rampant in our society. I mean, these are the bigger issues, right? Not everybody requires emergency medicine. It's this other pervasive forms of illness that really worry me.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily buy the whole thing that it's hereditary. I mean, I'm sure that does factor in some kind of sense, but if one takes care of themselves at an early age and they continue to take care of themselves, I don't think it's going to manifest itself later on. I myself have diabetes. I'm type 2. My mother is also type 2 diabetic. My grandmother was a type 1 diabetic. Okay. Interestingly, though, my mom was adopted, and so it's her adopted mother and grandmother that had type 1 diabetes. But like you said, it does seem like it goes beyond the physical aspects of
it does, because
of this disease.
When you're growing up, you learn how to deal with stress from your family. You learn how to deal with emotions. You learn eating habits. You learn behavioral habits. That's what causes, any sort of genetic weakness to express itself. Look at studies of twins that were separated at birth. who have ended up with completely different lives, even though they're genetically almost identical. They end up with completely different lives when they're raised apart. It's because different things express in different environments. And you're growing up and interacting with family and people and how you're taught to deal with things. That's an environmental change, right? That's how the environment changes things for you. So if there weren't studies done like that, then, you know, it would be more believable that, yeah, you're just doomed to whatever your genetics are. But, you know, scientists who specialize in epigenetics, people like Bruce Lipton and others, what's his name from, why can't I think of his name? Rupert Sheldrake. I mean, he's the guy to really research. And if you're interested in epigenetics, he's written several books on the topic and is really kind of the foremost speaker on epigenetics. And any of his books that you read, you'll get a greater understanding of how gene expression happens through environment.
Very, that is interesting. We got a few minutes before we go to our first break, and I just want to remind everyone that we, as long as Rea is okay with it, we do have a phone line. If you want to call in and ask Rea a question, or if you want to just comment or add to the to our discussion, the phone number is 1-415-891-9083. Again, that phone number is 1-415-891-9083. And if you have any problems calling in, just keep calling. Like call every 5 minutes or whatever. Eventually, you'll be able to get through. Is there anything you wanted to add before we go to our break, Rea? I know that there was probably some questions out in the Spreaker chat. No, excuse me, Spreaker. YouTube chat that is going on. I see a lot of great dialogue that's happening, talking about Bruce Lipton also as well. Good stuff that's going on in there. And we just I mentioned earlier, we just got onto the Fringe FM network. A little bit of technical difficulties there. Not sure what happened, but we do have the Fringe FM official Discord channel that a lot of people are in right now, and they are joining this show and in the chat. So I just want to welcome Night Stalker, the Judge, Disney Goon, Jose, Angel Joy, just among the few that are in there right now. I want to say good evening to them, and if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat, and I'll get to those as well. But yeah, we have a lot to go over. We definitely want to continue our discussion with what's going on in this industry. I believe our environment has a lot to do with it. I spoke about the fear factor that a lot of people are talking about today, Rea, and I know that you've probably encountered this. A lot of people talk about it on their shows. It's in media, mainstream, all the big news, all the talking heads talk about it. There's been talk about asteroids. There's been talking about ISIS. I mean, there's a lot of stressors in this world, and I believe that has a lot to do with a lot of the illnesses that are happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a crazy mixed up planet. I mean, what can I say? There's so much going on. It has an awful lot to do with it. It's just too much. People just have far too much stress. You look at, I look at even how my grandparents lived, and my grandmother and all of her brothers and sisters, they pretty much all lived to be like 100. And I think we're the first generation that's going to live shorter a length of time than our parents. And it's due to all these different things going on. I mean, we have too much coming at us.
I think so too, and we definitely need some kind of outlet, if you will. And I think that's part of the problem, is not enough people are getting the exercise they need. Right. There's a lot of parameters that are involved in this. But at any rate, let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we will speak more with Rea Tarnava, and our brother Gigi from Shift Happens will join us as well. So sit back, everyone. Enjoy the show. Thank you all for being here, and we will be back right after this. Don't go away.
Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Hey, this is Deb, and you're listening to Dave Cruz on Beyond the Strange Radio.
I warn you, this could scare you, as the sound bothers me to listen to. It has always haunted me. What you're about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
I've seen the Martians eat.
What in heaven's name is it?
I don't know. Beyond the Strange.
Have you ever looked skyward and pondered UFOs, aliens, time travel, alternate universes, and parallel dimensions? Want to explore paranormal activities, ghost hauntings, various cryptoids, such as Bigfoot, sea and lake monsters? Greetings, Beyonders. I'm author Casper Parks, and you are listening to Beyond the Strange with host Dave Cruz. Help spread the word by posting links in forums and social media. Available at Speaker.com, YouTube, and Google Hangouts.
Tea is the #1 cleansing tea in America. We cleanse you with organic ingredients, and when used daily, you can increase your energy. Cleanse from intruders that set up camp in your colon. Cleanse your colon and feel the difference. Colon cleanses can be uncomfortable. Not Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea is mild yet truly effective. Cleanse your insides every day. Easy to make, easy to use, and feel the results. Are you sold? Okay, then here's how to order. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Look for our specials on the front page. Get the Tea also carries top-rated supplements for those who care about their health, naturally. Again, log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and feel the results. And for those of you that arm yourself with information, come to our webinar every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can sign up at GetTheTea.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave Cruz. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Oh, man, it's been a wonderful evening. lots of good stuff been happening. Technically, we've had some issues. We had up and downs, but you know what? It's all good. We are here, and I don't think anyone says it's all good anymore, but you know what? Whatever. Tonight we are speaking with Rea Tarnava, and she is a subtle energy scientist, practitioner. Really great stuff, and you can find more information at infinitebiofieldmedicine.com. Once again, I just want to welcome back from the break, Rea Tarnava. Rea, am I saying your name right? Please tell me I'm saying it right.
You totally are. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad I am. And and that is the correct website, right?
It is. Yes. Yep. Thanks.
Where else can the audience learn more about you?
That's a darn good question. I have a blog actually on my website, and if anybody has, those late nights where they can't sleep, it's some excellent reading if you want to. I've got some papers posted on there and some research. I just did a 25-page pilot study on the effects of neurovascular holds on emotional seated issues. So yeah, just your average garden variety light reading.
Right. So if anyone out there is, no, just kidding. You can't go to sleep, No, that's fascinating. I think that's...
Yeah, that's right. If you can't sleep, there you go. It'll either teach you to sleep or it'll teach you something new, or both.
Both, what's it? Education by osmosis, maybe, sort of.
Yeah. So that's right.
So there you go. Also joining us right now is our brother Gigi from Shift Happens, who is also on the Fringe FM. And I want to welcome back Gigi for being on the show as well with us.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
So Gigi, I know you've been following along, and I'm sure you have at least a couple of questions for Rea, or comments, or anything that's that you'd like to add to the discussion tonight. You are familiar with some of the research that Rea has also followed, as far as Dr. Lipton and even Greg Braden, who you've had the privilege to speak to as well as Rea.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one thing I really do want to touch on or elaborate on is the importance and the impact that Bruce Lipton has had on the world. To really put this in perspective, he's basically the godfather of epigenetics, which, y'all talked about that quite a bit earlier. But the best part about his story is, first of all, this guy's a PhD in developmental biology. And I think he got that from the University of Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. Then after that, for 10 years, he taught anatomy at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine for 10 years, and then got promoted, went to St. George's University, and he was teaching, what he was teaching was, there's nothing you can do about genetics. You got genetics, and that's your problem. There's nothing we can do. But until he realized that you actually can change your genes, you can change your DNA, and it has a lot, if not entirely, to do with your environment. And he came to this point where, he's got, a more than great job, teaching at these prestigious universities. He was all set. He could have retired on that, and, he was all set. But once he understood and figured out for himself that what I'm teaching is incorrect, you literally can change your genes. You literally can change your DNA, or in other words, epigenetics is real. And he's such a genuine guy that he gave up all of those prestigious positions he had at the university, because he just didn't have it in him to teach something that he knows is absolutely false. And he left all of that stuff he worked for, all those positions he worked so hard to achieve. He dropped it at the drop of a dime because he just couldn't live with himself, knowing he was teaching the wrong thing. And like I said, he really is the godfather of epigenetics. And that's such an important thing for people to realize. Like, you really, because now with the understanding of epigenetics, you are no longer a victim. You actually can take control of your reality, your life, your biology, and you can heal yourself. And his work is, he seriously needs he needs an award or something. He's one of the most important figures, period, in the last 100 years for sure. And I can't express enough. Everybody, go check out Bruce Lipton. In fact, I'm going to tell you guys right now, and I'm going to say it slowly so that you remember. Go on YouTube, type in Ancient Knowledge Part 4.5. And that whole video, it's half Bruce Lipton and it's half Michael Cramo, which, by the way, another person you should listen to everything he has to say.
Indeed.
And just watch that video and listen to what this guy's saying. And it's such a positive, uplifting perspective that's scientifically backed that you can be in control. But if you're sitting there and believing that you're a victim of your genetics, there's, the power of belief is really strong. If you believe that, then yeah, you are a victim. But once you realize that you don't have to be, and you can change that is huge. Absolutely huge.
I'm sure our guests will agree with that as well. And by the way, if you're all going to check out all of that stuff that Gigi just mentioned, do it after the show. Not right now.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
No, but what do you think, Rea?
Yeah,
would you agree with some of the things that Gigi has alluded to?
Well, of course. I mean, it was when Dr. Lipton was one of the first guys to ever work on stem cells. And so this is where he was able to ascertain that it was the environment that changed the expression of these cells, and not in fact the nucleus at all. That wasn't making any decisions at all. And if you take the nucleus out of the cell, the thing dies very quickly. The membrane. If you take the membrane off the cell, it dies. But you can take the nucleus out, and the thing will live for 3-4 months. So it's not the brain of the cell. It's clearly the skin of the cell with all these. They're almost like cell phone towers. They're receptor sites, and this is where information plugs in and expresses the cell. And so if you have something plug into it that's not a good thing, it's going to not have a good expression, and vice versa. So, when neurotransmitters and that are floating around in the body, they're the chemical signals that actually turn on and off cells and make them express in different ways. So that's kind of how Dr. Lipton sort of got started in this work and ended up stumbling onto it. And the other thing I wanted to comment on is that I think it's absolutely disgusting that mainstream science has not embraced this knowledge. And the fact that our kids are still learning this regurgitated old crap from 40 years ago that has no relevance is horrible. How are our kids going to grow up and change the world when they're still learning incorrect science? That's a big issue to me. I take great exception. And my son's lucky because I teach him all this stuff. About these other kids, they learn this stuff. They're still going through medical school today, learning that the nucleus is the brain of the cell. It's horrifying.
Yes, I would definitely agree. Sorry about that. I was trying to look for my cough button. Been doing that quite a bit lately, but no, it's all right. Again, it's not that big a deal, but no, I totally agree. And it's, to me, again, it goes back to a lot of what we don't know much about our own bodies. We tend to just think that it's always one way when it's 1,000 different ways. And a lot of people would see. I don't know if I mentioned this. I probably didn't, Rea. Are you familiar with chi energy?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what the vital force. That's what subtle energy is. It's called chi in Chinese medicine, and it's called prana in Vedic medicine. that's what we're working with, is that vital energy of the body.
And I have I come across a few different people, and again, I totally believe it's a synchro that I've come across these people to show me of a practice that's called Falun Gong. And
I know all about that.
there you go. So here we go with another synchro. And I've done the exercises. I've read some of the literature. A lot of it has to do with karma clearing, of course, and trying to get to a higher level. And it's interesting because when I first started reading it, and I'm reading this, I'm like, God, this is very annoying. To me, it's like they're trying to say, we have to be perfect, and I've always been taught, well, nobody's perfect, and this and that, but it's not in that sense. It's perfecting our bodies, perfecting our consciousness, and to try to get to a higher consciousness, and right. I mean, there's so much to go with it, but of course, I've basically been doing the exercises. And it's really helped me a lot with my diabetes as well.
I imagine it would.
Oh, it's amazing. I don't do it as often as I should, so therefore I suffer more than I really should. But no, I will be the first to, tell people that this is very true, and this is real, and you can help yourself by changing your frequencies. That's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. How do we do that? How does one change their genetic makeup or their energy of their bodies?
Well, I mean, there isn't a real straight answer to that. There's multiple ways of doing it. I mean, Qigong is one way of doing it. Like I do a lot of Eden energy medicine, and there's a ton of different exercises that you use to move energy through your own body. You strengthen your own subtle energy before you start practicing on other people. And the first year of the program is all about working on yourself for the most part and strengthening your own energy field, because if you've got all sorts of holes in your field and emotional issues and that, you can't be effective to others. And Qigong is much the same way. You work on yourself and self-mastery, and it's a discipline that's not really, unlike karate or any of the other sort of disciplines that are practiced in Asian cultures, right, where you're really focusing on self-mastery, right? And then once you get to self-mastery, then you start learning ways of using energy to help and heal others. So Falun Gong is a really interesting one, because in China that was becoming a very, very powerful practice, and the Chinese government made it illegal, and they actually murdered a lot of the practitioners. So you daren't say the word
harvested their organs
to a Chinese person, because they'll freak out. It's a very shunned practice. If you're from Asia, I've got a good friend who's Chinese, and she says that that's not something that they talk about, and the terrible things that happened to a lot of the practitioners that went missing and were murdered and that type of thing. So
they were organ harvesting.
That's what they were doing. I didn't know if I should say it, but yeah.
Oh well, you don't have to. I will. I mean.
Yeah, they were kidnapped and they were listening. It was just awful. Yeah. So but there are all different forms. There are many, many forms of Qigong. I myself am studying medical Qigong, and again, you strengthen yourself first, and then you start to learn how to use the energies for others. But a very powerful piece that your listeners can look at again on YouTube is Greg Braden uses this in many of his presentations. It was a hospital, and I understand it's no longer open anymore, but it was a hospital that was strictly a traditional Chinese hospital, so no Western medicine there at all. And they had Qigong practitioners, and there was a lady that was there that had bladder cancer, and they had her on screen, and there were 3 practitioners that used the directed energy. And so they were showing her bladder cancer, the tumor, with ultrasound. And these practitioners were chanting in Chinese a word that means already gone, already gone. And they just kept saying it. You can watch on the ultrasound. And as they're saying it and holding their hands and pointing the energy towards her bladder, as the ultrasound regenerates every few seconds. And at one point, you can just see that the cancer is gone. Like it's amazing.
Wow.
And that's just with energy. And,
that is
so,
amazing.
I mean, you don't just show up to the hospital and they do this. It's a whole practice, again, that you go through with the client for months and months and months before this, where you need to make sure that they are on board with their mind too, because if they don't believe in it, if they don't believe that they can be cured, then they won't be. So that placebo nocebo effect is a very, very powerful force in healing. What you believe or what you conceive, that's what you will be. That's where your physical body will follow. So you got to be so careful with what you think, because what you think is what you become.
Right. Right. And
Right?
and power of intention. Right. I also have a question from the Fringe FM official Discord channel chat room. The Night Stalker would like to ask, does Rea have any recommendations for tips to help someone with severe multiple sclerosis? Thank you.
Oh, yes, I absolutely do. I mean, absolutely, you should be on 5,000 milligrams of vitamin D every day. But what I would highly recommend is Dr. Jerry Tennant's work. Dr. Jerry Tennant is a former ophthalmologist, and he's got a big, long story. I won't go into it. You can look him up. But he's got a book called Healing is Voltage, and he has a practice in Grapevine, Texas. And what he does with microcurrent medicine is an absolute miracle. And I'm currently training in that modality right now. I've purchased all the equipment and will be studying directly with Dr. Tennant in February. I would highly recommend you seek out his work. He would be the guy that could get the biggest bang and get you back on your feet.
There you go. There you go, Night Stalker. And thank you for that question. Gigi, do you, again, I'm sorry to go back and forth like that, but I'm sure Gigi has something that he'd like to offer or contribute.
Yes, definitely. And just to respond to some of the folks in the chat rooms, yes, I do apologize that I don't have my studio set up here. I'm out of town for Thanksgiving, so I don't have my microphone. So I'm sorry that my voice doesn't sound as sexy as it usually does.
Oh, but it does.
We're making it work.
Oh, it does.
But it does, Gigi.
But yeah. Well, I try really hard. So thank you very much. But yeah. Yes, the medicine, what they call the medicine-less hospitals out there in China is one of the most. And Greg Braden really made this famous. He did back in 2007. He did a really big lecture out there in Spain, and where he unveiled to the world exactly what you were talking about, Rea, where they have sonograms live, and you can see this tumor dissipate within 3 minutes into nothing. It was completely gone after 3 minutes, and all it was, no medicine, no anything. It was a group of shamans that were chanting a certain chant. And here's the really interesting part is, during this chant, they're essentially just repeating one word over and over and over. But here's the thing. You could designate the word lamppost and chant that over and over. What really matters is the intention behind the word, and the intention behind the word was already healed. And that's very important. Not about to be healed, not going to be healed, but this healing has already happened. And also, like Rea said, another huge factor is the patient needs to believe in the process, needs to believe that this is possible. That's a huge factor in it as well. But once all those line up, they're literally, making tumors disappear. And one common misperception is, like when Greg Braden brought that out back in 2007, everybody was like, okay, well, that was one crazy, situation that turned out like, okay, that'd be cool if we could do it again. But no, here's the thing. They do that all the time. That happens almost on a daily basis out there. It's pure belief and, and also like you said, Rea, definitely some placebo involved, I guess, as well. But it's really powerful. And then when you relate that to, a really good friend of mine, unfortunately, just passed away recently from stage 4 leukemia. And, I wish with all my heart and soul, I would sell my house to fly him out to one of these medicineless hospitals and get that sort of treatment rather than all this chemotherapy, which is such a very controversial, I guess we could say, chemotherapy is. And also like you said, Dave, when it comes to Western medicine and Western doctors, they are, they genuinely do. They genuinely do think and believe that they're trying to help people, and they really are. But what the problem is the education system. They're only, okay, if somebody has this problem, this is what you prescribe them. There's no sort of what's the word I'm looking for? There's no sort of improvisation on that. They don't have any, they do what.
The problem is
exactly.
the AMA. And I mean, these doctors' hands are tied. They have a protocol they have to follow. And if they don't follow it, they lose their medical license. And that's
right.
the gist of it. So they can't even work
exactly.
like really in the United States in a collaborative approach because they will lose their license, plain and simple.
Exactly, and that's a huge problem. I mean, because there are fantastic ways to cure all these conditions, including cancer, very naturally, and that's just not, in the textbooks for Western doctors. They are not exposed to that. So all they're going to do is throw medicine at you. They're going to throw chemo at you, while they genuinely think that they're taught to think that that's the best that they can do. But in reality, in all kinds of parts of the world, they're kicking cancer's butt all the time using these natural and spiritual methods.
Well, with Western medicine, like it's the tail wagging the dog because the pharmaceutical companies are the companies that are telling medicine what it can and can't do. It's not the other way around. It's not the doctor saying, oh, well, we need a drug for this. The drug companies come up with this stuff and they say, okay, doctors, now here's the samples and here's a trip to Rome and, here's some bikes for your kids and we want you to hand this out. Like,
Big Pharma.
I mean, it's not Halloween and it's not trick or treat, but yet that's kind of the way that it's being run. I don't know how many times I went to my doctor and I left with a parting gift. Like an unsolicited, free drugs. I mean, of course they went to the fire hall. I don't want them. I didn't go there for that. But it's pervasive. 60. I don't know about the United States, but 65. There's a statistic that came out recently in Canada that 65% of doctors are receiving kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. So, like, it's a big pervasive problem, and it doesn't allow people the freedom of choice to decide how they want to handle their health care. And what's more than that, I mean, I understand in the United States that with Obamacare, once you reject a treatment, you're now like screwed. You can't go back and say, oh, I've changed my mind. So it makes people very trepidatious about making an empowered health decision when you cannot say, okay, well, now I want to accept, some of your Western medicine treatment because I've run out of options or whatever your reasoning may be. Once you say no to it, that's it. That's my understanding from speaking to my friends, that they can't go back and now say, I'm sorry, I would like to do this. So then it makes people afraid, and they really get to the point where they just don't know whether to shit or go blind. And I think that's a terrible way to have people feel, that they're so afraid. This is our health that we're talking about here, not a pair of jeans. It's important that they have this freedom of choice.
Yes, you're exactly right. And you got to think at the end of the day, just like you said, it really boils down to the pharmaceutical, big pharma, as we say. And you've got to keep in mind, big pharma at the end of the day is a business. It's a business. They're trying to make
it's 100%
money.
a business.
And there's just simply so much more money to be made by subjecting people to chemotherapy and not really ever curing it and just kind of helping them cope, basically putting a Band-Aid on it, right? So that they have to keep coming back. They have to keep buying those chemo pills. They have to keep going back to chemotherapy, where at the same time, you can go over to China and have some shamans come out and chant that thing right out of you. But that's not very profitable for big pharma, is it? So they can't do that. It really, it comes down to business. You got to follow the money.
Right.
And it's just disgusting. It's disgusting.
They're going to lose
Well,
money.
and it's very suspicious that everybody who has cured cancer in the last 100 years has either been driven to obscurity or murdered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is reality. It's not, it's not just my opinion. If you research every individual who has come close or who has cured cancer, I mean, you don't live through that. This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. People aren't going to live through that. They find out you're curing cancer, you're good as dead, and that's. I mean, again, what motivation is that to anybody to pursue that? It's. I think it's a bigger problem than oil and gas. I think there are more people employed in curing cancer than there are in oil and gas. So that's the degree that we've made this an enormous problem.
Yeah,
how do you
I agree.
How do you fix it?
Yeah, the healthcare system's totally broken, and that actually does lead me to a question that I wanted to ask you earlier, Rea. Is you mentioned that you're in the process of writing a book, and also seeking your PhD in natural medicine. How does one get accredited that way? I'm not sure if it's natural medicine, but I know you're.
My PhD is in integral health and life physics. So it's like an applied physics degree on basically on how to research subtle energies and that which has to do with healing, health and healing. So it's sort of that all-encompassing paradigm. So yeah, it's an accredited degree, and I'm attending California Institute for Human Science, which is located in Encinitas, just outside of San Diego in California. And it's an excellent program. I mean, I highly recommend it.
That's awesome. And I think one of the things, again, is if more people knew about this kind of practice, and I think they'd be more. I would think they would be following more research about this. That there's other ways of healing without having to go through big pharma and these doctors that prescribe. Just all they want to do is prescribe pills and pills
right.
and pills. When
and this is why what I do and what people like me do is so important, is because any of these subtle energy healing modalities have been really poo-pooed in society. People look at stuff like this and they think it's woo-woo, and they think that there's no scientific basis behind it, and that they really have no other choice but to do what Western medicine tells them to do. And it's like, it's a complete uneducation. And that's, I mean, traditional Chinese medicine has been thousands of years. There are reports that say up to 5,000 years that they've been practicing this, and that they've known about these subtle energies, and that they've been able to heal the body. And yet we come up with this pill-based method, 150 years ago, and this is supposed to now replace 5,000 years of history. Like, really? But that's the pervasiveness of the medical industry in the West, is that they have convinced people to be afraid. And when you're afraid, you don't make a good decision.
Yes, I agree totally. Yeah. We spoke a little bit about learning about this second genome and how it can be, accredited to someone or something or whatever, changing the human structure. we also talked about possibly the Anunnaki. There's countless stories of how they came up with Homo sapiens through their DNA and mixing it with basically apes and monkeys and that kind of thing. It's definitely not Genesis.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of people needed to get used to the idea. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, what I understand from, sorry, I just got to grab a plug-in thing here for my earbuds. They seem to be beeping. I don't know why. What I understand from people like Greg Braden's work is that, I mean, there is enormous scientific evidence that shows that our second chromosome has been altered, and it's been a telomere to telomere splice, and that just doesn't happen in nature. So at some point, I mean, we've been altered, right? So whether you want to believe like the whole monkey theory, like it kind of works, you take a hominid, a primate that's already evolving and shows some signs of intelligence, and you splice it with something else to give it this consciousness. I mean, it kind of makes sense that their evolution doesn't have a story, right? Like if you look at the theory of evolution, there's a whole bunch of bits and pieces that are missing. There is no real direct link for Homo sapiens sapiens to anything that was monkey related. Yes, we share some of the same genetics, but we also share 97% of our DNA is shared with cows. I mean, that's irrelevant, right? It's something changed us. So yeah, I mean, absolutely go hop on the internet and look at the second chromosome, and you'll see that it's been spliced. They've removed the telomeres, so there maybe we used to be 24 in me, not 23 in me, and they removed the telomeres off the second one, and they've done a splice. Somebody has done that. That's not something that ever happens in nature. It's not possible.
Yeah, that's a real serious thing that people really need to understand. In fact, Greg Braden's latest book, Human by Design, goes all into chromosome number 2 and how this is not conjecture at this point. They know that there was genetic manipulation. They know.
Absolutely.
To make an analogy for the folks listening, it's just as obvious as, let's say you got a satellite in your backyard and you got that hooked up to your TV, and all of a sudden it stops working. Okay, so you go out and look at the satellite, you look at the cables, and you find that the cable has been cut with a very sharp blade. It wasn't like, whereas other people would say like, maybe the wind knocked it off, I don't know, maybe a coyote came and chewed on the wire. No. This is a clean cut that could have only been done with a knife, or a blade of some type. That's that's exactly how obvious it is to everybody looking into this. Like there's no possible way that these parts of our brain were connected, which, by the way, is directly related to the part that allows our brain, that allows us to have speech, to have language. If it wasn't for this genetic manipulation, alteration of our genetics, we wouldn't have the ability to have language and converse like we do today. That it's very clearly has been manipulated at some point, and even mainstream scientists that would never even touch shows like these are starting to admit now, like, something happened. Somebody did something here. And that's really important for people to really understand.
Yeah, and if you look at the works of guys like, Tellinger or William Henry or, oh gosh, I'm just trying to think of the other gentleman I was watching yesterday morning on Gaia. Anyways, I'll think of it. I mean, it's painfully obvious, like, to me. And it goes, if you look at all of the historical stories from any culture, there's a huge crossover of information that happens. So, Absolutely. I mean, it's undeniable.
It truly is undeniable. The only people that are denying it are the people that haven't actually looked at the research. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I got to mention real quick, the dialogue in the YouTube chat has just been wonderful, as well as in the Fringe FM official Discord chat. And, Bill has brought a couple of interesting comments. He's saying true, but war is not fought by the medical industry. They might back it though. And, yeah, it's very possible our military backs up a lot of this stuff. Why, there's been multiple counts of, I don't want to get into conspiracy. I really try not to do that. I do analyze it. I do bring it out into the open. We've talked about chemtrails. We've talked about all kinds of different things. What is possible, what is possibly happening in this world. It's pretty evident. But I wanted to mention that what Bill was saying about the military, and it's interesting that that he brought that up with project, with projects like MK Ultra and all these other different type of I guess projects, if you will. Not exactly sure where I was going with that, but I know that the military fits in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And also I wanted to ask Rea about what she thinks about what's happening in our schools as far as vaccinations are concerned. I saw a comment somewhere, I believe it was on Facebook, about how a judge had ruled, that children need to be vaccinated. But yet would that judge be accountable for any deaths that happen to the children that get vaccinated? Yep. Because they're doing something, they're saying, hey, you have to do this, but what if the child didn't die because, they didn't have to get vaccinated? So, where do we draw the line? How do we do that? And we shouldn't, in my opinion, have someone speak for us especially for our children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's, I'm very opinionated when it comes to vaccines. And so I sometimes get a lot of criticism for that. But, a lot of these diseases and stuff and illnesses that we vaccinate for were diseases of filth. And they were already on the decline before these, if you look at the stats, they were already on the decline before any of these immunizations came out. A lot of, again, the stuff that I've researched over the last couple of years shows that there are more deaths, especially in the juvenile kind of age category. There are more deaths from the immunizations than from the diseases themselves.
Once again, I lost my cough button. I apologize.
Sorry about that. It's my ear pod. They're just they're kind of cutting out. I've got to figure out how I can go onto a wire now.
Well, no, I wanted to bring it up because we were talking about health empowerment and a lot of different things before the show,
yeah.
And where we kind of wanted to take this message to the audience, especially when it comes to your work, Rea, and there's so much we can go into. How do you feel? What's the importance of our food system right now? We were talking about that with a lot of the GMOs that are out there. There's a lot. There's been lawsuits, especially with what was that weed killer?
Glyphosate.
Yeah, glyphosate. Roundup. And at first I believe this older couple, they both got cancer, and they claimed that it was because of this glyphosate Roundup.
Yep.
And at first they were like awarded millions, maybe I think it was even $1 billion each or something like that. And then towards the end, they were their award dropped considerably. And it's like, well, whatever, as long as it's a win is a win, in favor of the people, and I believe that, in this case, I'm not trying to say that people should, slip and fall and try to sue. That's not what I'm saying, but I think it draws attention enough to where people are questioning what's really going on in this, in this industry.
Well, I mean, the food we eat is critically, it's of critical importance, because the food we eat is the building blocks of life. So if you're eating pounds of toxic chemicals,
your physiology. So
it's okay. We can hear you.
So yeah, I mean, it's critically important to have clean, water, to be eating healthy food and eating organic as often as you can, as long as it's real organic.
Rea, we might want to. I want to try. Yeah, just go ahead and let's try without the earbuds. Maybe that'll help.
I did. I turned them off. You can still hear me.
There we go. We just, as long as you talk into the microphone, we can hear you fine.
Fantastic. Yeah. So again, like with food, it's critically important to try to eat as often as you can organic and stay away from any genetically modified, because again, there's just not the research there. We don't know if our bodies can truly assimilate things that have been genetically modified to resist insects. I mean, if insects can't eat it, how can we be expected to eat it and assimilate it? So I think what ends up happening is if you look at it under spectrography, you'll see that a lot of these foods don't contain the light frequencies that we need in order to be healthy. And I mean, we are a bag of biophotons. So you need to eat foods that are giving you that light energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, lowering how much flesh you eat and eating a lot more fresh vegetables and drinking a ton of water, staying away from pop, staying away from things that are chemicals, really, really watching your sugar intake. Sugar is the number one problem, in my opinion. It's not healthy fats. I mean, you want healthy fats in your diet, and even a certain amount of animal fat is good for you. But it's the bad fats, like trans fats, margarines. Like, again, if animals won't eat it, I challenge you to go take a bucket of margarine and even put it in front of a bunch of rats. They won't eat it. Like, it's plastic. It's plastic.
It's a molecule away from. It's a molecule away from plastic.
So of course, whatever you're eating is what your body is building your cells out of, and you can't have good, thought processes, neurological connections. And I know this for a fact because I went through a phase in my life not that long ago where I had chronic fatigue, and I changed my eating habits. I get, some form of exercise every day. I do my energy exercises every day. I mean, you wouldn't recognize me from the person I was 5 years ago. So it's really, really important to do those kind of things and eat healthy and drink healthy, lots and lots and lots of water, and use a water filter. My God, do not drink fluoride. That is if people still don't know that, like, for the love of God, people, do not use fluoridated toothpaste. Do not put anything with fluoride in your mouth. It is absolutely a neurotoxin and it will harm you. Yeah, food is important. It's an important component. That's why I have nutrition as part of my modalities, because that's something that we got to get people onto, taking supplements. So, if there's certain foods that you don't like to eat, get it in supplement form. At least you're getting it.
What do you think about the rise in vitamin D? I've noticed that a lot. I mean, just about everyone I know, I talk to that sees a doctor that practices Western medicine, they always recommend vitamin D. And I personally believe, because vitamin D is a vitamin that from what I understand, we normally get from the sun. And I'm inclined to believe that there's so much blockage of the sun right now. And
that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. With all the chemtrails and all pumping all this crap, geoengineering, absolutely, we're not getting the full spectrum of light. So that's what I think is causing it too. You're 100% right. So yeah, pump the vitamin D, 5,000 milligrams a day.
And I'm sorry, brother Gigi, did you have a comment?
Quick comment. I just want to throw this out there. Rea and Matt Landman
right,
need to come on your show at the same time.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that. Matt Landman is a major activist of geoengineering, and he's very passionate. He created a movie called Frankenskies that's on YouTube that you should definitely check out. He's on my Facebook page. You guys should definitely meet and talk. But yeah, he's. I just had him on the show like a couple of weeks ago.
I know. I listened in actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So he's a great guy. He, like I said, very passionate. If more people had his passion, I believe things would start get done a lot quicker. But yeah, it's definitely something people need to take seriously, and I believe that I know organic is very expensive. I believe that it's important that people need to understand there is a difference between organic and GMO, and we should definitely try to go more for the organic. If you're growing a garden, use heirloom seeds. Definitely, and grow your stuff like that. Don't just go to Walmart and pick up some seeds because you're basically getting GMOs. That's my opinion. I don't know if anyone agrees with that or not.
I agree 100%.
And you get what you pay for. If you're buying cheap food, you pretty much need to know that it's not food. I mean, it's if you look at the light spectrum of, and I don't want to pick on fast food. I won't say a brand, but fast food in general, you're not getting a full spectrum of light. You're eating like grays and, just awful colors. Like it's not doing anything for you. You'll maybe get one or two colors in there, maybe a yellow and an orange, like a lower kind of frequency, but you're not going to get anything good. So you need to eat like a full range of colors, and your best bet is plant-based, in every color that you can imagine from sun up to sundown, because that's where you get the full range of vitamins and the full range of light that your body needs to be healthy and energetic.
Yep, correct. And I quickly want to add something to that too, because Dino brought up a good point in the YouTube chat. He mentioned that he still eats grass-fed beef, and I know there's vegetarians out there that swear by it, or vegans swear off of eating meat. But I'll tell you one thing: those people who take care of their bodies, they know what they need, and everyone's body's different. And so if your body needs red meat, if your body needs some kind of protein, then you should definitely give it what it needs. Of course, don't go for the steroids and all of the what's the word I want to talk to? Not steroid, hormones. In our meats and in our poultry, but I know for a fact, back when I was younger, very younger, I was weightlifting and I was working out, and I did try to do just more like more vegetables and fruits and not as much meat, and I noticed that my body wasn't benefiting from that. As soon as I put some more red meat back into my diet, I started feeling stronger and I started feeling better. And so, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I am saying that everyone's body's different. And so just listen to your body. It knows what it needs. And I think, with good practices, eating practices, we can all be a lot healthier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's a very personalized and individual thing, and different people are healthy from eating different things. Some people don't really require meat. And my understanding of it is it depends on what your blood type is. That really drives the type of food that you should be eating by your blood type. It's the most reliable way of discerning what's best for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm afraid that our time is definitely coming to a close. And for those of you who were trying to call in, I apologize. I'm working on a better phone system as we speak, so more people can join the discussion and the dialogue. It's been a great evening. Once again, I just want to ask Rea, one more time, if she can please let everyone know where they can find you, Rea, and what you have coming up, your books, any other talks, or anything that is you that you'd like to put out there.
Well, best place to find me is my website. I've got all my contact information on there, so phone numbers and all of that good stuff. I am not scheduled for any sort of speaking because I've got a ton of exams coming up for the next couple of months.
Busy.
But I'm sure that there will be something after that. And yeah, the book is a work in progress. So who knows? It's a work in progress, and I want to make sure that it's everything I want it to be before it's done. But I will post on my website when I'm nearing completion on that.
Wonderful. And please come back to the show. It's been wonderful having you on the show, and a lot of great information. And I just love talking to you, Rea. So thank you very much for coming on the show, and please come back.
Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks very much, Gigi, for chatting with me. And yeah, I look forward to speaking.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Rea, you have a great evening, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a great night.
Yep. You guys too.
Thank you. Rea Tarnava, everyone. Very great guest. I really appreciate all of her information. It's been a great and fascinating topic that we can all benefit from. I apologize to you in the 661 area code. We just ran out of time, and I want to thank Brother Gigi again for coming on the show and talking about what we discussed earlier. But really quick before you go, Gigi, I wanted to mention again that we are in the works of doing something where not just you, me, and John, but also other Fringe hosts could be involved in. I don't know where the show is going to, how it's going to evolve, or what it's going to evolve to, but it's definitely going to be a video broadcast. So that's going to be something that I look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, trust me, folks, it's going to be the coolest new thing to listen to, for sure. And I'm really excited about it. And it's just a win-win-win for everybody. And it's just a great opportunity for all of our fans of all of our shows to get to hang out with us once a week and get their questions in and interact with the audience and just recap on all the hot news each week. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And also, I've got to say, I think Rea is like my new favorite person in the world.
Yeah, that was a really great conversation, and I hope to hear her soon on maybe Shift Happens one of these nights. But you never know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll definitely have her on sometime, for sure. Yeah, she's already OG status in my book. How
right
about
on.
that?
So quickly, Brother Gigi, we want to throw out a plug really quick for you, and where can they find you and the show and all that stuff?
Definitely. Yeah, I host the show Shift Happens right here on the Fringe FM every Friday night from 7 to 9 Pacific time. We are taking Thanksgiving week off, but we will be back strong the following week. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. And I wish you all the most happiest of holidays. And we'll see you much sooner than later.
Awesome. Hang on, Brother Gigi. We'll talk in a little bit and wrap up the show.
All right.
All right. Once again, thanks everyone for hanging out with us tonight. It's been a great evening with our guest, Rea Tarnava, subtle energy scientist. And you can find her on Facebook, and I'll have links to the show on our website. Remember, Beyond the Strange is owned and copyrighted by Dave Cruz. It cannot be simulcast, rebroadcasted, copied, or without written consent of Beyond the Strange. Also, the views and opinions are not necessarily that of Beyond the Strange, hosts, guests, affiliated networks. Listeners are encouraged to conduct and research and formulate their own opinions. Executive producer and creator of Beyond the Strange is Dave Cruz. Co-executive producer is Deb J. Cruz. Disclaimer voice work is done by Casper Parks. Visit him at casperparks.com. Music is by Alan Hall and Zebrafish. That was Buckethead at the beginning, by the way. Just wanted to also give him the credit. Soothsayer is one of my favorite songs. And always thank you for reposting in Twitter, Facebook, and in the chat, whether it's YouTube or the Fringe FM Discord channel. We appreciate it. Until then, everyone, we'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Pacific, and have a great night. Bye-bye.